This is the sign for becoming introspective and meditative. For a minute, ponder over what we heard and so forth. So let us begin by reciting one very beautiful mantra. Please try to recite after me. Om Atma me shuddhyantam Jyotiraham Viraja Vipapma Bhuyasagam Swaha. May my physical being be purified. I am this self-effulgent, free from all impurities and sins. Antaratma me shuddhyantam Jyotiraham Viraja Vipapma Bhuyasagam Swaha. May my psychic being be purified. I am the ever pure self, free from all sins. Paramatma me shuddhyantam Jyotiraham Viraja Vipapma Bhuyasagam Swaha. May my spiritual being be pure. I am the self-effulgent, sinless consciousness itself. So friends, the gist of Vedantic teachings is summed up in this way. One of these ways is to call it Atma Vidya, means knowledge of this self. It is the search for who I am. One immediate response could be, I know what I am. It is, you don't need to tell me who I am. I know what I am. Obviously, yes, I know how I look. When I see my photograph, I recognize it's mine. It is, and I tell people, I am hot-headed, don't cross my path. I tell people that I can do this work, I can do this work. I tell people that yes, I am a PhD or whatever, I tell my educational qualifications, I narrate all my different achievements. I also tell that I was born of these parents, and now I have this man or woman as my spouse. I have these children. I know who I am. I mean, it is not that I have to look into scriptures to know who I am. Do I not know myself? Well, yes and no. It is yes, because obviously we have some knowledge about ourselves. But this knowledge, is it the knowledge of our true self? Because all these things that we have told about us, they are not always our attributes. Like I say, I am a PhD. I am not, but suppose, it is I am a PhD. Then, is that my true identity? It is not. For when I was 5 years old, I certainly wasn't a PhD. So it is not my permanent identity as such. It is a changing something. I know I weigh 160 pounds. Well, was that my weight all the time, or does it remain so all the time? No, that is not my identity as such. I am rather hot-headed. Is it always the case? No, sometimes I am not. That is why I am able to understand that I am hot-headed. If I am always hot-headed, then it will be a difficult thing. There is nothing for comparison. So it is sometimes that I am hot-headed, sometimes not hot-headed. Sometimes I am a nice person to have interaction with, sometimes not. Sometimes I am healthy, at some other times I am not healthy. So these are some changing attributes. It is one person was wanting to know that who is the mayor of the city, and somebody told, the one who is walking right there in that blue t-shirt, and he is actually the mayor of the city. Now he remembered that the one who is wearing blue shirt, but then next day the mayor had put on some different attire, different colors. So he couldn't recognize because he was going just by the blue t-shirt. So blue t-shirt is something that comes and goes. It is a continuously changing attribute. Sometimes you put on this, sometimes you put on that. So these attributes, they keep on shifting and changing. So therefore this question comes, who really I am? And that is actually therefore the topic, who this self is. It is in Vedanta, this is actually the cornerstone of the whole search, whole spiritual practice is really centered on this one idea and knowing the self. Even God is considered or called by this beautiful name, Paramatma, my real or supreme self. That is most commonly used name for God, that let Paramatman alone knows. Means God alone knows, means our supreme self. God has this beautiful name, Paramatma. So that means my supreme self. So, a search for this Supreme Self, that is the idea of all spiritual practice. And today we are going to explore it both in its theoretical aspect as well as practical aspect, because Vedanta, like all religions, are and should be of practical orientation. They want actually practically to illumine our lives, not just to tell us some information, but to make that information practical or perceivable, experiential in our life. So it is an applied science, you can call. Vedanta is an applied science. Means what you learn needs to be applied. It is, there are pure sciences and there are applied sciences. Applied science means what you learn, you want to make use of it, like say psychology. And there is pure psychology, means you just study, try to find out, but then there is the clinical psychology, which is the application of that in curing people of some psychic problems and so forth. So that is the applied science. So Vedanta is applied science, means whatever we learn, we see that it gets implemented in life, and thus we reap the benefits of that knowledge. So both these sides, the pure theoretical part as well as the applied part, we will try to see, get a brief overview of it today. So the subject title has 3 words, actually 2 words: discovering the self. If we leave out the article the, then discovering and self. But then if you look at the way it is spelt, the dis and covering have been made separate. There is a significance behind putting it like that, because this idea of cover has many different connotations. What is this covering and discovering? When we speak of cover, 2-3 different meanings come to our understanding. One is to kind of protect, and in that sense the word cover is used. We put cover, use, for example, I have insurance cover for this. Means it is there, it is in the sense of protection, and the insurance will protect or cover, and that is, I have insurance cover for this. There the word is used as in the connotation of protection. Then there is the other idea is hiding. In insurance covers there is not the idea of hiding. It is nothing to hide about it, just to say that there is the protection. But then there is the idea of hiding. There is also the idea of beautifying. You put a beautiful looking cover, not that you want to hide, but you want to enhance the beauty, so you put a nice looking cover. So that is another way it is covering. Another idea there is disguising, that something is made to look as if it is something else by a cover. So when we think of discovering, again this prefix also is used in various ways. It is like removing the covering. That covering is there, discover means remove. Remove the covering. Another way this word discovering is used, most commonly used in fact, that is used as scientific discoveries and so forth. So finding out the truth, that is also the meaning of discovering. So that is another way of looking at this word discover. And then there is the word discover, means not letting it covered. It is the process of covering may take place, but we want to nip it in the bud, not letting it covered at all. So to prevent getting covered, that also is connoted by this word, this prefix dis, in many different contexts. So discovering the self has actually all these connotations involved in it. So discovering, as we see that the self, we have the idea of self. In many Vedanta texts this question gets asked, like in Viveka Chudamani or Vedanta Sar. Tell me, is this self known or unknown? If it is known, then we don't have to do so much of study and spiritual practice and so forth to know it, because it is already known. And if it is completely unknown, then how to begin? And who to begin? Who will begin it? If we do not have any idea of the self, then who is going to begin this study? So this is a dilemma that it is, this dilemma is kind of solved by telling, the sages tell, that we have some understanding of self, but not a full understanding of it, or not the correct understanding of it. It is like this. Some time back I heard a message on the answering machine. Now probably the person had not actually dialed, but it happens these days, that the phone gets touched somewhere. They are all touch screen phones, smartphones. So they, being extra smart, even when you don't want to call, the ring goes. And then the phone message was kind of long, but what the message was, I was not able to get anything. So I thought that what is this being told, which language? Some words appeared vaguely like English, but that's about it. Then I asked another friend, well, can you hear and tell what is this? Then he said, probably it is not a message left at all. It is accidentally the phone connection, the phone has gone, and therefore you are listening to this. I could identify one voice. She must have called earlier, and then it remained there as one of in the history, that this number was dialed, and in the pocket it got pressed, and again the call went. But see, I had that recognition was there, that it is this lady that is calling. But what is she talking? I had no clue. So similarly, we have some vague idea that there is self, but what it is, we don't get a clear understanding. Also, we feel confused as to what connection it has with the world. The self, and we understand, always putting it in the context of what we call as world. Like I am a PhD, or I put on this kind of attire, or I weigh 160 pounds, or such things. These are the things not really about the self. I am telling about how much this weight the body has. The self, I know, doesn't have any weight, but the body has weight. So also the body puts on some clothings. It is not that I have put the clothings. Also, the self is not PhD, it is the body and the mind together, this complex, this gets this idea that it is educated to this extent. So we are rather confused because again we have this connection also with other things, that I like donut. So it is not a good thing to like maybe, but some people like it a lot. They say America runs on Dunkin' Donut. So it is. So obviously quite a few people like it. So it is. So that is it my quality? And I like Dunkin' Donut. It doesn't really describe me as I am, but in connection with donut. So the description is with something outside of the self that is used to describe the self. And those things again keep on changing. Not that all the time I will like donut. It is sometimes one may like, sometimes one may not like. So therefore, those descriptions keep on changing. So it is always a very confusing thing as to who I am, what I am, and it needs to be discovered. Why it is to be discovered? That urge does not come to everyone. It is there in everyone but does not become prominent. Everyone may have occasionally a feeling that I should know what really this I business is, this phenomena I, what it is. It is, but there are so many other concerns in the world, other drags in the world, that this search kind of gets submerged under them. So, does not always become prominent. But sometimes when it becomes prominent, one feels, no, I must pay some attention to this, because that is it not most important? For me, I am doing all these things. And who is this me? I don't know. It is silly. So first thing is to know who I am, and then for me I may do all other things. But who this I is, that is what I should primarily know. This urge comes. And then the idea of discovering the self begins. It is so very confusing that the reason is we can see ourselves that we have the idea of the self as something that doesn't change. There is this idea of continuity about the self. Like you signed up for the retreat, and do you think the one signed up didn't come? Somebody else, some imposter has come instead of you? No, you know that the one who signed for the retreat has come for the retreat, not somebody else. Although there is a gap between the time gap. I mean, some people signed up about 2 weeks back, some signed up about 3 weeks back, some signed up just yesterday, some probably just walked in and signed while walking in. So there is a gap between your signing up and your coming. In between this, the body and the other attributes, they went on changing really. And yet we are sure that the same person who signed up has come. So there is this continuity of the self, whereas everything else that we see is changing. So how, what part of this is self then? Is this body self? I remember one incident in one of our dispensaries, that dispensary, mobile dispensary. We used to go to different villages where there were no medical services at all, no doctor was there. So we used to take a doctor and medications, a few assistants, and we used to go. And then I was kind of a general manager and helper in that. So I used to write their names. So, and I called in then the name of that person and give the medication. So I called, one little girl's name was there. So I called her name, Anita. I am Anita. So I asked, well, you are Anita? Yes, I am Anita. Maybe some 7 years or so old. So I asked, then pointing to her nose, is this Anita, or is this Anita, or is your hand Anita? Whom to give the medicine that I am giving to, whether I should be giving in the hand or in the ear or in the eye? Who is Anita? Who of this is Anita? And then naturally this little girl got terribly confused. And she was intelligent, but this question is really confusing to everyone. Who really I am? Am I this nose? Am I this body? Am I the hair? Yeah, it is, they suppose the hair on your head, and now if the hair is pulled, you will say, I am being pulled. But when you go to barber and the barber cuts that hair, and then that cut hair is pulled and put in the trash, you don't think that you are being put in the trash. It is, now is that hair I? Is that nose I? Is the hand I? What of this is really I? And needs to be probed, therefore. We say that we have come to the retreat. Raj will say there sitting, yes, Swamiji, I have come to the retreat. Now, is he always throughout in the retreat? It is the question, for some time he is in the retreat, other times he is physically certainly there. But is he there or not? Right now he is, but it is, but other sometimes, we all, I took his name because he will not take an offense, that's all. It is, but then we are physically here, but are we really here? Suppose when you see the students going to the class, and the class is of some very difficult and boring subject, and then the teacher is teaching. If the student is all the time in the class, the learning will become so fast, so quick, so good. But what happens is, there is intention. That is why the person has taken admission to the school, paid lot of money, invested lot of time, and wants to get education. And so goes there. A body is taken there. And the body is sitting there. Am I there? Had I been actually there all the time in the class, then I would have learned so much, so quickly, so well. But as we know, that I am not there, the body is there. What does it suggest? I am not the body. Just as I am not my car. Because sometimes I am in the car, I use the car fine. But am I always in the car? No. Similarly, am I always in the body? No, I am not always in the body either. What does it mean? The I, the self, is not to be confused with the body. But then what connection the self and the body has? We will take up a beautiful passage from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, a wonderful Upanishad where this connection between them is explained. An attempt has been made to explain it. And as we identify ourselves with the body or the external conditions, what is the self? And here we will notice and we will come to it later in the later part of the retreat, and that is when you say discover in the sense of taking the covers off. Like in winter you put on so many clothings, and if you start removing the covers, then what happens? Your size will become less and less. So it is the other day I went to the doctor's office and it was very cold, so I had put on a lot of jackets, this, that, and then first thing they tell you is to stand on that weighing machine. And then I saw, my goodness, wow, I have put on so much. And but then I realized that about 20 pounds of them belong to, these heavy jackets and so forth. So when the covers are removed, then you see that you become smaller in size and weight and so forth. With this self, you will notice a very different phenomena. The more covers you remove, you see that it is expanding. Becoming bigger and bigger, it fills the whole universe. I mean, it is such a stunning thing. Normal feeling is, well, yes, there is one self here and there is another self there in Roshni. It is not the same self. Everybody has a different self. That is the common understanding. I want to know myself. There the myself and myself are a little different things. I want to know myself and I want to know myself. So when one tries to know myself, one sees that it is now, you don't have much of a proprietary right over it. It has expanded. And you see that it is the self of everyone. It is not just mine anymore. This is a very stunning conclusion that one will come to, friends. I mean, it is stunning, and intellectually it is tremendously stunning, and practically it is still more so. We are so accustomed to live in our ignorance, thinking that this is one self here and another self here. Here the self is so good, and in my neighbor it is terrible, you see. It is, but when you discover that it is same, my goodness, it is how to live then if there is the same self everywhere. But that is the truth. You can't escape from the truth. Escaping from truth is impossible. You may try to run away from the truth, but the truth gets you. It is, you don't want to see the truth, but that doesn't mean you escape from the truth. It is, there is no way one can escape from the truth. Truth is truth. That is the thing, you see. So, the best thing is to accept it and see that how this truth becomes the criterion to live life with, so that we will not have to fight with the truth, but we will go with the truth. So, this is the big difference in life. So, when we think of discovering, let us see, this is a beautiful part of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. For the to save the time, actually the original Sanskrit words are tremendous, great, very beautiful words, but we will not have time to go through each of them. We will go through the translation, a beautiful translation by Swami Nikhilananda. It begins, that Yajnavalkya starts telling, this is the third volume of this Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, 7th chapter. The verse begins by explaining the self. And now, just for the sake of our language is limited, so the word he is used. But don't confuse it with any gender specific word. It is used as he, but it is he, she, it, whatever. So, he who inhabits the earth, yet is within earth, whom the earth does not know, whose body the earth is, and who controls the earth from within. He is yourself, the inner controller, the immortal. It is in this whole earth that self is. Your self is in the whole earth. It is it who inhabits the earth, yet is within the earth. The inhabits the earth means we are on the earth, not in the earth, you see. So, but yet here it is, inhabits the earth, ya prithivyam tishtan prithivyam antaro, that it is inside the earth, pervades the earth, and yet the earth doesn't know it. Earth doesn't know the self. But yet this self, whose body is the earth, this is very confusing apparently. The body of the self is earth. This is my body, the self, and it is my body. So, the self, the body of the self is earth, and it governs the earth. It is, and it controls the earth, governs the earth, manages the earth, makes all the different movements therein from inside. That is the governance of the self. Like the self that we feel within governs all the limbs from inside. It governs when, suppose I lift my hand. Then who has lift the hand? Say, I have lifted the hand. I walk. Who is making the feet move? Well, I am making the feet move. It is I am controlling this body. It is also actually controlling the earth as one of the elements. One of the elements is this earth. So this earth is being controlled by the self. It is inside. The controlling is inside, like a machine, controls the other things that the machine is running. Like the engine of the car and so forth. The car's wheels are seen running, but what is powering it is the engine. So similarly, this is powered by the self, controlled by the self, and the inner control, inner governance cannot be, you see, just you cannot be but governed. I mean, the external governance you may obey or you may not obey, but the internal governance, you have no choice about it. You have to obey to the internal governance. You abide by the internal governance automatically. External governance, what do you think? Yeah, suppose I don't obey. If I don't get caught, I will get away with it. In case I do not get away with it, whatever is the punishment I will have. In one part of in India, the custom is get into the trains, don't buy the tickets. Don't buy the ticket. And then the saying there goes that, well, going is free, coming back is free. If you are caught, then food also is free. So it is, then the food is free. I mean, not also should not be there, because then going and coming will stop, but then the food is free. So it is, the thing is that it is external governance, not the internal governance. So you can transgress it. Internal governance cannot be transgressed. So the governance of the self is that which is making this element of earth move. We can discuss a little bit about what is these elements, but let me read a little bit more. He who inhabits fire, yet is within fire, whom fire does not know, whose body fire is, and who controls fire from within, he is yourself. Eshata atma antaryami amritaha. That which controls the earth is actually yourself. There are not two different selves, one controlling the earth and another controlling your body. It is the same one self. So that is the whole emphasis in this beautiful, this is called, this chapter is called Antaryami Brahmana, and very elevating study indeed, that you see fire, the another element, another principle, that also the same thing. It is this self is inhabits the fire, yet it is inside the fire, and it controls the fire. Fire does not know it, and that is, who is that who controls that? It is yourself also. Eshata atma antaryami amritaha. That is the refrain that keeps on coming. Eshata atma, ta means te, eshate atma means yourself. That is yourself, And how is that? It is within, inside, and is immortal, means unchanging. If something changes, then it is not immortal. Because a series, what is death? A sequence of change comes to a state where now you cannot recognize it anymore as that. So you say that the person is dead and gone. It goes beyond physical recognition. Till then you say that is alive. But then when the body is cast aside, the person still is there actually in another body, but you can't recognize. So you say that the person is dead. It is actually what we call death is changing another, another link in this series of change, as that beautiful verse in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita says that in this body itself you experience kaumaram, yauvanam, jara, that you experience your childhood. You were 2 years old, yes. You became a little older, you went to school and so forth, and then become an old man. Yeah, it is. So you see the continuity there. You will show the picture also. Look, when I was 1 year old, at that time this picture was taken. Look, I used to look like that then. And then you show different pictures. It is, you know that they are all your pictures. There is a beautiful Sanskrit play that Uttar Ramacharit by Bhavabhuti, and it begins with this idea that Rama and Sita, they are looking at an exhibition of the portraits made on different incidents of their own lives. That all the different incidents were being painted, and then they were reminiscing about it, that this happened at that time. Yes, you see, you did that at that time, I know. And then like that. So with photographs, one's own albums people take and keep on looking for hours and hours. It is because you see that in and through all that changes, you are there. This is my picture when I was 1 year old, and this is now picture when I am 80 years old. That the pictures may not have much similarity, but yet you recognize that, well, in all these different stages, in and through all these stages, I travelled. Then Bhagavad Gita kind of drops a bombshell. Tatha dehantara prapti. In the same, series of change, this is just the next link, that now you take a completely different, non-recognizable to this brain, to this system, a new type of body, that's all. That is, you are still continuing. Your continuity does not break. Just as in this series of changes, your body kept on undergoing so many changes, but still your continuity was maintained. And then later on, your continuity still gets maintained absolutely. But the body is different, that's all. It is like your car, you go in the car, you keep on repairing it. 6 years, 7 years, or 8 years old, has put on 200,000 miles. Okay, but still it can work. You still put in money in repairing it. At one point, you start thinking, it is taking too much of maintenance expenses and not dependable at all. One of our friends actually called this morning that he is not coming because his car is not starting. So it is what I mean is that you realize that it is not dependable anymore, it cannot do your work. So what you do, you buy another one. I need a car, so let me get another one. Now you travel in that car. Now you don't have that old car, but that old car also was going through so many changes. Now that has probably, you junked it, it might have been crushed into some kind of a metal pulp or whatever, and then now you can't recognize it anymore. But that is, you have not changed, you, same person has bought another car, that's all. So it is like a funny incident had happened, that I had a lecture assignment in one of the defense production factory, that army guns and all made there. So an ordnance factory. So I was going there with a friend, and that friend had bought a used car some time back. So he said, I will give you a ride, come on. So myself, some others were also there, and as we entered the factory, the other cars also were coming from opposite direction, and we saw every car coming in there in the, either in our direction or opposite direction, was giving us a big side to pass quickly. The big truck coming from the opposite direction, it would respectfully stand aside and let us go. So I thought, wow, I am such a respectable guest. Nowhere else I had received such a wonderful reception. What the respect I am getting here. And that friend who was driving also was not able to understand first. He then immediately recognized why this is happening. He said, I bought this car just a few days back. This car was earlier belonging to the chairman of this factory. And therefore everybody was thinking that the chairman is inside the car. Now see, the car was being confused for the chairman. Now somebody else is in the car, but most people have not known the changeover had happened just a few days back. So that is why he told, I have just bought a car and let's go. So that is why, looking at the car, we were getting this big reception. Now the car is this same. Is the person same? No, the person is not same at all. So, and then that person would be going, he might buy a different car, and for quite a few days, till people get accustomed, he will not get any respect, because people will see the car, who sees who is sitting inside is not known quickly. So therefore, we will not get that kind of a wonderful reception. So that is how this body is, isn't it, like a car? And we travel in this body. And just as you might have parked this car, your car outside there somewhere, this car you bring and park it here on the seats, and then they go out of it. So it is, the thing is, you should not, means not that you want to go out of it, but it may unconsciously happen. I am expert in that, my speeches are such that make people, leave the body and go out, and then, so forth, and then they feel so nice. And many come and tell, Swami, your speech was so good, I felt so quiet and calm. Because we are not there, so naturally you feel so quiet and nice. So it is, anyway, what this is telling us is that we are inside and yet not inside. It is the self is controlling all, and yet we do not know it at all. We do not know it, who is controlling it. That is why the process of discovering, discovering here gets the sense of finding out, knowing what it is. So that needs to be taken up. Then it continues further, he who inhabits the sky, then it is said, the one who inhabits the air. The same thing goes on, ending with the refrain that Eshata antaryami atma amritaha, that this is yourself who is immortal and changeless and controls things from within. And that is very important, within, and not seen, but it is within, like a software controlling the hardware. Now most of you use computers, so you can understand this. When I first saw it was again something quite stunning, that how it happened. I was wondering, how does it happen? On the printer, there was a printer, but I didn't see any connection wire that is connected to computer, and then there was a document I needed to print, and somebody said, well, you go and just press the button that give the command print. I said, well, but how this, I am pressing it here, how is that printer there is going to print there? Well, you see, it works, and it worked. That is how you know the information controls it. Just you pass the information, it controls it. It is wonderful to see how all the movements, they get controlled by something that you do not see, and that is called software, that which you cannot see, which you cannot touch, but it works. It makes that which you see is worked by that which you do not see. And so this can be a good analogy for the self controlling everything. It is, you don't see it, but yet it controls everything. So we will take a very short break, and then we will discuss soon about what all this means. Before taking this short break, let us spend a minute in meditation. So this is actually break for meditation. Means you can move around, stretch your feet, can use restroom, but the idea is what we discussed. Think about it, and when we come back in about 10 minutes, we shall take up the idea of what is meant by different elements, and how they are the elements of this whole universe, and what is meant by self-governing them.